The Galactic Empire had conquered countless worlds, each one bending the knee to its supreme technological might. Planets that once thrived with their own cultures and ecosystems were stripped bare, converted into efficient, sterile hubs of production. To the Zoltha Dominion, nature was nothing more than a chaotic relic of primitive existence, something to be tamed, controlled, or erased entirely. When they turned their gaze toward Earth, they saw an untapped resource, a planet overgrown with unrefined wilderness. The dense jungles covering vast portions of the surface were, to them, a sign of inefficiency, a waste of potential. They did not see thriving ecosystems, symbiotic relationships, or untamed beauty. They saw disorder. And disorder, to the Zoltha, was a disease. The decision was swift. A reclamation force was dispatched, their orders simple: eliminate the jungle, strip the land, and terraform it into something useful. They had done this 1,000 times before, to 1,000 other worlds. Resistance was never an issue. No species had ever stopped them. Humanity, they assumed, would be no different. They sent mechanized harvesters, great metallic constructs designed to plow through forests like a scythe through wheat. Drones flooded the skies, mapping out the region, identifying potential threats, though they expected none. Their foot soldiers, bioengineered and cybernetically enhanced, were immune to most planetary diseases, outfitted with armor that could resist both traditional weaponry and environmental hazards. They were the peak of evolution, the embodiment of efficiency. The first days went exactly as expected. Towering machines carved through ancient trees, turning the green canopy into barren fields. Entire sections of rainforest were burned away in controlled purges, the smoke rising into the sky like silent declarations of conquest. Yet, even in their arrogance, there was something unsettling about this planet. Their scanners registered strange fluctuations in the atmosphere. Unfamiliar signals flickered in and out of their communications, as if something was interfering. Equipment suffered unexpected failures, minor, at first, but noticeable. Still, they ignored these anomalies. The jungle was merely a collection of plants and wildlife, nothing more. What could possibly oppose them? But then, their soldiers began disappearing. At first, it was dismissed as incompetence. A squad patrolling the outskirts failed to check in. Their last transmission was garbled, static-filled nonsense. Another group went to investigate. They never returned. Then the reports started coming in, half-whispered accounts of movement in the trees, of something watching from the darkness. Elite soldiers, conditioned to feel no fear, found their hands tightening on their weapons, their movements tense. They had fought armies before, had faced towering war machines, but this was different. This was something unseen, something that did not fight with brute force, but with patience. They activated thermal scanners. Nothing. The jungle was an unending wall of heat, masking everything within it. Motion detectors flickered erratically, overwhelmed by shifting leaves and crawling life forms. Their enemies were nowhere, and yet, they were everywhere. The jungle had become a battlefield, but it was a battlefield that did not belong to them. The first real sign of trouble came when one of their scout teams turned up dead, what remained of them, at least. Their bodies were found strung up in the trees, their armor intact but their throats slit with surgical precision. No gunfire, no energy burns, just clean, efficient kills. It was impossible. Their sensors should have detected an attack. Their suits should have warned them. But the jungle had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only a message: you are not welcome here. Still, the Empire refused to see this as anything more than an inconvenience. The jungle was a nuisance, and now, so were the humans. If they wanted to play war, the Zoltha would oblige. More patrols were deployed, their numbers tripled. Heavier machines rolled through the undergrowth, burning away every hiding place. They thought brute force would flush out their unseen enemy. But the jungle was not just a battleground. It was a weapon, and it did not belong to them. The first thing the humans took away was visibility. Smoke grenades, natural mist, and dense foliage turned the Empire's superior optics into a liability. Thermal readings became useless, every leaf and tree trunk radiating the same heat signatures as a living body. Motion sensors, built for clean battlefields, registered constant false positives, ghost signals in every direction. The Zoltha's greatest advantage, their technology, was becoming their weakness. Then came the traps. Not crude mechanical ones, but something far worse. Poison-coated spikes, nearly invisible in the dim light, impaled soldiers who wandered too far. Pits, lined with sharpened wooden stakes, turned unwary patrols into corpses overnight. Drones sent to scout the canopy never returned, their signals abruptly cutting out before the jungle consumed them. And then there was the wildlife. The Zoltha had assumed that no mere animals could pose a threat to them. They had underestimated how humans could weaponize nature itself. Bioengineered soldiers, designed to resist most alien pathogens, found themselves completely unprepared for Earth's microscopic arsenal. Insect swarms ignored their armor, slipping through tiny seams, biting, stinging, injecting neurotoxins that left them hallucinating and convulsing. Water sources were tainted, not with crude poison, but with bacterial warfare that left the Empire's troops delirious and weakened. The jungle was suffocating them, starving them of sight, of control, of their own sense of superiority. Paranoia began to fester. Soldiers fired into empty darkness, convinced they saw movement where there was none. Their commanders barked orders to stay disciplined, to hold their ground, but even they were beginning to sense it. The feeling of being hunted. And then the real attacks began. They came at night, when the jungle was at its darkest. Silent figures, blending into the trees, striking before the enemy even knew they were there. Knives found gaps in armor. Silenced gunfire whispered death from the shadows. The Zoltha's soldiers, trained for conventional warfare, found themselves completely outmatched. Every time they thought they had found their enemy, the humans were already gone. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Empire's forces were not advancing. They were retreating.